2:30 p.m., South China Sea. A U.S. Navy helicopter began an operation that instantly rattled Beijing's nerves. China scrambled its prized Z-10 attack helicopter, sent with one mission: chase the Americans away. What the pilot didn't know? He was about to hand the U.S. Navy 72 minutes of priceless intelligence and compromise China's own submarine. For the next 72 minutes, his attempt to intimidate the world's most powerful navy backfired, teaching the Americans more about Chinese technology than Beijing ever intended. Scrambled from Xiamen Air Base just 28 minutes earlier, the Z-10 pilot's orders were simple: buzz the Americans, look aggressive, and make them leave. But the US MH-60R Romeo, a multi-role naval helicopter, wasn't sightseeing. It was tracking a Chinese Type 039 diesel submarine that had surfaced to recharge its batteries after 48 hours submerged. Diesel submarines are like a swimmer holding their breath. Eventually they must surface, and when they do, US sensors are waiting. For an aircraft, you are approaching Chinese territorial waters. Alter course immediately, crackled the Chinese pilot, ignoring the fact they were still 50 nautical miles from Chinese territory in fully legal international airspace. The Romeo's crew, 2 pilots and a sensor operator, barely reacted. They knew something the Z-10 didn't. Every move was being recorded. The Romeo carried ALQ-210 electronic support pods, digital vacuums sucking up every radar pulse, radio call, and engine harmonic the Z-10 gave off. The Z-10 looks mean, with its sharp lines and Russian-inspired design. But in reality, it's a budget knockoff of the Apache, developed in the 90s when Russia needed cash and China needed helicopters. The Chinese pilot fired flares, a theatrical show of force, but to the Americans, it was nothing more than a chihuahua barking at a pit bull. The US crew calmly lowered their dipping sonar into the water, reminding China that their submarine was still being tracked, flares or not. Panicked, the submarine dove hard, so fast that cavitation bubbles and pressure pops echoed across the entire U.S. carrier strike group. In submarine warfare, noise means death. The submarine's crash dive roared through the ocean. Cavitation bubbles, hull groans, so loud that every ship and sub in the U.S. carrier strike group heard it crystal clear. In one reckless move, the Chinese pilot doomed the very submarine he was supposed to protect. By 2:48 p.m., 18 minutes into the standoff, the Z-10 pilot finally felt he'd won. His fire control radar locked onto the American helicopter. The tone in his headset signaled a simulated kill. He had them, at least for 3 seconds. 3 seconds later, the U.S. crew flipped a switch and erased his advantage instantly. A nearby EA-18 Growler electronic warfare jet opened up, blasting the Z-10 with ALQ-99 jamming pods. It was like bringing a squirt gun to a Navy SEAL gunfight. His radar collapsed into static. The lock vanished, replaced by ghost targets. 12 Phantoms, some flying backward, one even appearing inside his own cockpit. This was the clash of eras. 1990s Russian surplus tech versus cutting-edge American jamming. The Z-10 never stood a chance. The ALQ-99 didn't just blind him. It made his radar hallucinate, hopping across dozens of frequencies faster than the Z-10 system could keep up. Then came the nightmare. His threat display lit up. USSPY radars from the entire carrier strike group had locked onto him. It was like the Eye of Sauron had turned his way. FA-18. Super Hornets roared off the carrier deck. They weren't there to engage, just to remind him. This Romeo wasn't alone. It had an entire Pacific fleet behind it. The Z-10 pilot scrambled, switching frequencies, boosting power, even rebooting his radar. Nothing worked. The Americans had total spectrum dominance. Meanwhile, inside the Romeo, the U.S. crew was so relaxed they might as well have been discussing lunch. They knew in just 4 minutes, things would get even worse for China. To drive the point home, the Romeo banked slightly, dipping its sonar back toward the submarine below, reminding everyone that the Chinese sub was still pinned. The submarine thrashed in panic, making noisy, evasive turns. Each move only made it louder, easier to track. The Z-10's interference was making things worse. Through their sonar, the Romeo's crew could almost hear the panic. Screws thrashing, cavitation booming, like a submarine screaming for help underwater. Each desperate turn made the Chinese sub louder, painting an even brighter target across the fleet's sonar net. At this point, the U.S. task force had the submarine surrounded in an electronic vice, surface ships, subs, and aircraft all triangulating its every move. The Romeo helicopter circled above like a shark, dropping sonar pings at will. The crew wasn't hunting anymore. They were just toying with their prey. Above, the Z-10 pilot finally realized the truth. His mission wasn't rescue. It was suicide. By 3:02 p.m., referees overseeing the war game made it official. The Chinese sub was declared killed. The Z-10 peeled off, humiliated. His interference had doomed the very submarine he tried to shield. Meanwhile, the Romeo's crew calmly logged the entire sequence. Every radar lock, every jamming pulse, every sonar ping, cold, hard evidence of U.S. dominance. On paper, it was just a naval exercise. But for China, the message was chilling. Their anti-submarine tactics were hopelessly outclassed. For the Americans, it was validation. Romeos, Growlers, and Hornets working together created a kill chain China couldn't break. And in real combat, this wouldn't have ended with a referee's whistle. That submarine would have been nothing but an oil slick and a memory. The lesson? Technology, coordination, and calm nerves beat desperation every single time. China's Navy sailed home rattled, their wolf warrior posturing exposed as theater. The Americans? They treated it like a Tuesday drill, because for them, this was business as usual.